did you go to school?
What do you think of what's going on right now, mate?
These evil little invisible parasites.
Satan-worshipping Freemason morons.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
We're not run by factions.
Get the fuck out of camera!
There are much more powerful international forces in play.
Is this pink eye? Is this what pink eye is? I don't fucking know what's happening.
Please go outside and look at the moon quickly.
It's been crazy, guys, but guess what? It's how it is, mate.
Mate, because I want to do you slowly.
Well, I ain't spending any time on it.
Welcome to the Conditional Release Program podcast that delves into the netherworld of cults, crims, and con artists. I'm Jack the Insider, otherwise known as Peter Hoisted for tax purposes.
And I'm Joel Hill, and we have a lot to talk about because it's been a while between episodes. But my God, there's been an awful lot of dumb shit happening.
Yeah, the idiot machine in Washington is working overtime, producing some of the finest unintentional comedy in political history. We're also facing a very serious set of shitty situations geopolitically. Israel is having a crack at Iran. Iran is having a crack at Israel. And Elon Musk is competing with RFK Jr. to see how many people they can kill with policy. My money's on Bobby to win the body count competition with his predictable moves toward making America healthy again by making vaccines history.
He's having a crack, Jack, but I don't know. Elon is doing a fine job with some very solid work on his own. Elon has become known for his cuts to US aid, including the PEPFAR program, which distributed AIDS drugs in Africa, keeping people alive for as little as $1.20 per day. But that was a bit pricey for old Elon, who, instead of offloading the program onto other NGOs, just defunded and abolished it. I mean, that is going to have 6-digit deaths on its own. Just that.
Well, Bono has claimed that it has claimed already and got shit canned by Musk and his creepy disciples.
Of course.
And Bono has claimed that the figure is already 300,000.
I wouldn't be surprised at all. I think Elon Musk responded with something like, "That's a lie." Which is funny for Musk to say.
You're a fool, all this sort of stuff.
Cool. Yeah, whatever. Yeah, what a cunt. Yeah, so look, let's not get focused on just Africa. That's only its own 6-digit. We've got other places that Elon is cleaning up. We've got this charming situation here, like the firing of a US Marine veteran, Carla Nelson, whose role at the Department of Veteran Affairs was to facilitate mental health assistance to veterans with PTSD and other serious mental health disorders. And this is just one of many examples of Elon cutting things he doesn't understand with a stunning lack of empathy. This program is just there. It's just a one woman helping veterans get mental health support so they don't kill themselves. And it's quite likely, despite this effort, that you're right. Bobby Jr. will probably take the trophy. We'll see. We'll see.
Well, I would like our listeners to get down a couple of figures because these figures are going to be worth looking at by comparison in a couple of years' time as the Trump presidency comes to an end. Now, there are three figures. Basically, the life expectancy for men in the United States is currently 74.80. Mm-hmm. For women, it's 79.3. And the a figure also that I'd like our listeners to take down and remember is infant mortality. And that's defined as live births making it to their first year. What I might do is a little bit later is extrapolate that to the 5th year and see how we go there too. But as for the traditional definition of infant mortality, the US has 5.61 per 1,000 live births, making it to their first year on this earth alive. They are 54th in the world, believe it or not, on that figure alone, 5.61 per 1,000 live deaths. That speaks about their appalling health system, of course, and other things. There are other things. But their infant mortality rates have been improving and did in the last, well, I'm going to say the Biden years, but certainly in the last 2 or 3 years. You can imagine that these things will change dramatically over the next 2 years. When we talk about dramatic changes to life expectancy, just a 6-month flip is a real sign that something's going horribly wrong.
Oh, totally. But let's just imagine that these things are not being recorded correctly. That's
the other thing. You made the point when we were talking earlier. It may well be that they just won't record bad news.
Or just not do it properly. Or just lie.
Yeah. right now, I mean,
I
look,
don't trust it.
we're still on intro, folks, but things like H5N1, we know that there are poultry workers, somewhere around 200 poultry workers who have been infected by infected poultry, but no one's keeping count of that anymore. The CDC is no longer storing data on that. The big issue with H5N1, and it hasn't happened yet, and it may not happen.
It may not happen.
So we're getting transmission from poultry to people. What happens when we get transmission from people to people? It hasn't happened yet in the history of H5N1. But if we do, then look out. You've got another really significant pandemic on your hands, and you've got this clown who will be unable to deal with it because it doesn't fit with his view of the world. That's essentially
think germs
what we're
make
dealing
you sick. Yeah, it's not good. It's really not good on about 1,000 levels. And look, we can't do another global pandemic because we saw how we behaved last time. It will be so much worse.
It's not going to work.
No,
it's not going to work.
People will just die. It's just people will just die. It's just that. And if you've got enough money to stay home, you'll be fine.
The other thing that's been held up again, I mean, there's so many things, and we'll devote an entire program to RFK Jr.
We have to.
We
couldn't fit it in today.
I mean, with federal funding, we're looking at developing a vaccine for H5N1. That ain't happening no more.
Yeah. All the cancer vaccines and everything, it's all just
sleepwalking to a disaster with this clown who thinks he's right about everything.
Yeah.
And is right about nothing almost.
He really is. And most of his stuff is guided by self-interest, which involves lawsuits against drug companies. I mean, that's not a noble pursuit. Like, yeah, if you are standing up for the injured and the, sort of impoverished through, medical costs, sure. But no, he's just enriching himself by convincing juries of bullshit and then cashing in on a, sort of like a commission basis. Guy's a fucking con artist. It's amazing that any of this is happening. I'm stunned.
But it's not all doom and gloom, listeners. Well, it is a bit. There's quite a lot of doom and gloom. But politics can still be fun.
Oh, good.
In the West, we saw our very own beer sponsor proudly consumed in the chamber from a chasseur.
Yes.
A shoey.
That word, listeners, is French for shoe. Yeah. So now some of you may be aware the fine folks at CBCO are not only in Port Melbourne, but also Margaret River over in the West, which means they're a West Australian beer just as much as they are a Victorian one. Now, that is where outgoing Labor MLC Kyle McGinn decided that after he finished his 56-minute valedictory speech, suspiciously wearing one shoe the whole time, that he would suck down a tin of CBCO draft through his sweaty right sneaker.
Yeah, better him than me.
Well, it's a delicious treat. Now, look, some laughed, some cheered, some recoiled in horror. The speaker got all pissy with the president, as it is. But there's one thing that matters. CBCO is the best damn beer sucked through a shoe. And I won't hear another word on it. It is. Now, while their IPA is a perfect beer that needs no adulteration, the salty finish with hints of glue that come from the drinking of a draft tin out of a shoe complement the beer quite nicely, I found. Yeah, according to Kyle.
Don't leave the socks in there. Just don't leave the socks in there.
Kyle that's just a tea bag, mate. Don't worry about it. Or a hop sock, as they call them in the brewing industry. So, listeners, if you're going to celebrate an important milestone in life, make it truly special and drink CBCO from your shoe. It's a fine beer. It's the best of both coasts. And you get 10% off if you use the voucher code CRP10.
CRP, Conditional Release Program 10. So
That's
get
it,
into
10%
that.
off.
And pull your shoes off and start drinking heavily.
Suck it down.
That's my strong advice to you all.
I fully concur.
Well, listeners, I was in Mildura last week attending the funeral of the one and only Denis Ryan. And many of our listeners will know Denis Ryan. He was this sort of champion of child protection in Mildura, the man who, as a police detective, tried to prosecute a particularly prolific pedophile by the name of Monsignor John Day, compiled 12 statements from victims, another sole statement from a witness who provided corroboration to one of the victim's claims, and then the shit hit the fan within the Victoria Police Force. Denis essentially was forced out. He was ostracised within the force, placed on general duties, highly skilled detective, all of a sudden being sent out to pick up drunks from Mildura's pubs. and told not to leave Mildura, something to his enormous credit that he ignored. Went down to Melbourne to plead his case, but no luck. So he lost his job, and of course, many years later, Denis and I sat down and wrote Unholy Trinity, which was his story around Mildura, the extraordinary coincidence of picking up Monsignor John Day, then Father John Day of Apollo Bay, in the company of two prostitutes, naked and pissed as a newt. That was in 1956, and when Denis sought and received a transfer to Mildura, pretty much the first person he met up there was Monsignor John Day, and he said, "I know who you are. I remember you," and told him, "I saw you in the company of prostitutes, drunk as a lord." "Oh, that wasn't me. Anyway, for a number of years, Denis sort of decided that he just best leave Day and his protector, Jim Barrett, and the other fellow, this was called Unholy Trinity, the officer of the court, senior officer of the court at the time in Mildura, was the clerk of the court, Joe Carney. He thought he'd leave them to their own devices until the evidence was sort of overwhelming. So the book was written. We're very, very lucky with timing. The Royal Commission into Institutional Responses to Child Sexual Abuse was announced pretty much as we finished writing. So there's a little addendum there in the first book. We revised it subsequently. Mm-hmm. And Denis got to tell his story in the county court, where the Royal Commission was in hearings at that stage, and he found that he was believed. It was a wonderful thing to be present at that time. This was in December 2015. Denis rose from his giving evidence. The counsel for police had no questions to put to him, and he was excused at that point and got up to a ripple of applause that grew louder and louder and louder as he took his seat. And that was that moment of vindication. There was more to come. He became an AM. I'm not quite sure what that stands for, but what an AM is in terms of Australia Day honours. An AM for his dedication to child protection services. He became the Citizen of the Year in Mildura, which is a lovely thing that he also received. He received compensation from the Andrews government. They didn't have to compensate him, but they did. And once Andrew's office got hold of it, things moved fairly quickly. Denis didn't receive a truckload of money, anything like that, but he did live the last 8 years of his life in a fair degree of comfort. He lives in a retirement village in a small unit there with his wife Bev. Oh, he did. And, of course, he passed away last Monday week. And I led the eulogies. There were two. There was another fellow, Vernon Knight, who spoke about Denis Ryan's last 8 years on the planet, and I dealt with those beforehand. And there are many, many police there, which was really, really pleasing, and it would have pleased Denny. In fact, after the service, coffin rolled out to a guard of honour, which included an assistant commissioner, a number of very, very senior police, the chief superintendent of Mildura, terrific bloke, and we did farewell the guy pretty well. I just thought that guard of honour was kind of really lovely thing, and it made me think that, you know, this was kind of Denis's legacy. There are a number of other police that were there on the day. Kevin Carson was there from Ballarat, who I know well. Kevin had developed or had investigated the suicide deaths of 40 Ballarat or residents in the greater Ballarat area, and he determined that 37 of them had committed suicide because of clerical abuse. And he bundled up all those findings and he sent it to the Victorian coroner. And then, rather like Denis, the shit hit the fan for Kevin. The coroner sent it back to police. Senior police put quite a junior intelligence analyst on it, who came back and said, "I can only find one of the 40." Long story short, we know it's more than one. But at the same time, Kevin was kind of blackballed at the same, as a result of this. this is this century. This wasn't in 1972 as with Denis's thing. So it's great to see Kevin Carson there. I remember having a beer with Kevin in Ballarat, and it was like we had to, do it surreptitiously because he wasn't sure if he was being followed, by his own police, by his own colleagues. And then as Denis's namesake, Colin Ryan, he's now retired, Detective Colin Ryan from Warrnambool. I mean, he had the balls to obtain a search warrant on the Ballarat Diocese and turned up there one day and said, hand over all the files relating to one pedo priest by the name of Paul David Ryan. So there were these brave guys. Denis sort of led the way. Great to see Kevin at the funeral. Wonderful of him to be there. There were a number of members of the Mildura socket and the Ballarat socket. That's the sexual offence and child. I can't remember how that works. How the acronym works, but socket, child sex offences and sex offences, and the establishment of these with these very fine, experienced investigators is kind of the Denis Ryan legacy, I think, in many ways. So we got to send him off in good nick, and he would have been very, very pleased because he was a copper to the bootstraps and denied that the ability to do the job that he loved. Yeah. One little sour note. Firstly, the Premier, Jacinta Allen, sent one of her staff up to Mildura to read a prepared statement, which was very lovely. And then the national MP for Sunraysia, which is Mildura and around there, a woman by the name of Jade Benham. Now, I know, because I had a go at her, I know she was down in Melbourne for Parliament, but there was no message of condolence or sympathy extended to Denis's wife by the local member, and I thought it was absolutely shocking. And so I got onto her social media and got up her about it, and she said, I was very busy. I was doing estimates in the Victorian Parliament last week. And I said, well, that's fine, but you didn't send a message. You didn't bother. Didn't bother to do any of that. Is that because Denis Ryan was a Labor man and you're not? Ooh. And she didn't answer. So no. That was, she may well have blocked me on Instagram, but anyway. Probably. So that was a little bit of a sour note. But, a life well lived and a bit of an exemplar for us all, really, that things can get horrible. Things can be horrible in your life, but you've got to remain true to truth and justice, and that was the story of Denis Ryan's life. Well done, that man.
Yeah, no, he's a very good man. I'm glad you've sort of immortalised him, but also helped him get justice, or at least some relief with Dan Andrews coming back and giving. Yeah,
he was.
That wouldn't have happened without what you guys did.
He's a very happy man towards him. And I spoke with him regularly afterwards. We didn't talk much about child protection issues. We talked about footy and politics and all that sort of stuff. But he was a man at ease finally with himself and with even his tormentors.
Yeah.
So Vale, the great Denis Ryan, I'll miss him dearly.
Yeah.
Elsewhere, and in fact, US elsewhere, Minnesota Democrats have been involved in targeted assassination.
More death.
Yeah, 57-year-old Vance Bolter has been arrested following the largest manhunt in Minnesota's history. I was sure that he would commit suicide before they arrested him, so well done.
I didn't think about that, yeah.
Officials are hesitating to call it domestic terrorism. I don't know why. However, the attacker allegedly had a list of 70 targets at the time. That included Governor Tim Walz, who was the Democrats' VP candidate. Walz has called it an act of targeted political violence. The shooters list also featured the names of abortion providers and pro-choice activists, according to ABC News. Democratic State House Representative and Speaker Melissa Hortman and her husband were shot and killed last week, which happened shortly after fellow Democratic State Senator John Hoffman and his wife were shot 9 and 8 times respectively, but have survived and are recovering after surgery.
Crazy, they survived.
The shooter was dressed as a police officer. He wore a realistic latex mask to disguise his face and a police uniform that featured a taser and other equipment imitating police-issued gear.
Yeah, there's been parallels to the whole, like, ICE are wearing masks. This guy wore a mask, but they're completely different masks. He wore a latex mask, this kind of thing you'd wear to a sort of Halloween costume party as an old man, as opposed to a mask.
They're expensive, those latex masks.
The good ones are. Yeah, I actually know a guy who makes them in makes them more like Halloween party ones, but he makes them in Baton Rouge in Louisiana. And I've been to the factory and hung out with the guys who work there. I met him in Thailand, and he actually had one of the latex masks. And I put the latex mask on, walked over to a table, and had a chat with a couple where I started saying more and more fucked up things, just getting real weird, bad grandpa things. And I eventually had to be like, you do realize I'm wearing a mask, right? And then they're like, what? I'm like, look at my arms. I'm not like 80.
I know, a lot of them are very credible. So this
were
guy
stunned.
He's now been arrested. And there's just been a lot of nonsense about his motives. Clearly, he was motivated to kill Democrat politicians and those providing health care, reproductive rights to women.
Yes, he not a fan of any of those things. So we've had like the usual sort of, platitudes from the Trump administration. He didn't get to the point of saying things in full caps, so it clearly didn't piss him off as much as, wokeism. But he did say that such horrific violence won't be tolerated and that anyone involved would be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. So, yeah, cool. I mean, maybe put some capital letters in there, mate. Maybe pretend like you actually.
Yeah, didn't go the caps lock on that one.
No.
Look, he was also asked if he'd been in touch with the governor, Minnesotan governor Tim Walz.
Yeah,
and he had not. This is just today. Rome wasn't built in a day, and I did have my parade of squeaky old tanks rolling through the streets of DC.
Yeah, and I had to watch Fox News.
But he hadn't been in touch with Tim Walz. Maybe I will ring him. I don't like him much. They've got the sledge away. I don't like him much. I think he's terrible he's a terrible governor, blah, 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 blah.
Blah, blah, blah.
And then maybe I'll ring him, and maybe I'll ring some other people too.
Yeah, maybe I'll ring Pizza Hut, like whatever. I don't care. What a fucking asshole. Well, look, he's in good competition and good company, despite the falling out, of course, Elon Musk, who is a fucking idiot, reposted a tweet insinuating that this was a violent attack with a left-wing motive, saying this, quote, the far left is murderously violent.
Ooh.
Now, this was actually edited before it previously stated the left is murderously violent.
Not the far left, just anyone. Anyone left of centre, and you're a crazed gunman in waiting.
Anyone who believes in the nationalisation of basic public services is a murderously violent person, apparently. And look, once again, this man is a fucking idiot. The fact that he felt, oh no, maybe I should say far left instead. And of course, he hasn't deleted the tweet. I mean, that remains up there. He stands by this. The comments are full of idiots agreeing with him, which is exactly why he leaves these things up there, because they're actually effective. And this is just a mark of why the US is in decline. If people this stupid and manipulative are influential leaders, like in the electorate and in media, they're deeply involved in the government, and they're just destroying the concept of truth. Like, we have a Utah State Senator, Mike Lee. He posted a tweet like with a picture of the shooter in the latex mask and in the police uniform. It looks like he's at the door of the house.
Actually, I know that photo. That photo was taken on the doorstep of the wounded parties.
The wounded party, okay, not the murder parties.
Yeah,
and
I think so.
Put the caption "Nightmare on Walt Street," and then did another tweet saying this.
This is what happens when Marxists don't get their way.
Fuck you.
He's a state senator.
Fuck you. I mean, he's a state senator. The person shot in that situation was also a state senator.
That's right.
How can you possibly trivialize political violence?
This is the person he looks at across the divide on a regular basis.
Insane. So just mental. Anyway. So look, it's properly insane shit from elected representative talking about political assassination like it's a joke, even though, of course, they're both different states, but like, he's a state senator. They're state senators. Like, it's the same kind of political class.
Same thing. Yes. He's not
fucking mental. Anyway,
Utarian, I suppose they call them.
I don't know. Asshole is where I'll
Mormons.
go.
Just Mormons.
Utah.
Just called Mormons.
Yeah, I've got very little time for Utah as a concept. So his official senator Twitter account posted a very different story. What did he say?
Oh, this is the formal rhetoric.
Formal statement.
These hateful attacks have no place in Utah, Minnesota, or anywhere in America. Nice use of the Oxford comma there. Anyway, please join me in condemning this senseless violence and praying for the victims and their families. That's the official Mike Lee account.
Mm-hmm. But yeah,
his senatorial account.
At based Mike Lee tells a different story, and that's his personal account. That's his sitting on the toilet tweeting account. That's his brain, and this is just showing that the modern Republican Party is fucked in the head. Even though there's a few 21-year-olds in there trying to keep it together, the people elected are fucking idiots, and I just don't even know what to do. So look, the bullshit about this guy being a so-called leftist has bizarrely taken hold on the right, which is cringe as fuck, but unsurprising,
again, sort of predictable.
But
there's
wildly predictable.
There's just no breadcrumbs.
Well, there is, and it's bullshit. This is the breadcrumb. Basically, these fuckwits have zeroed in on the fact that Bolter was appointed to a governor's workforce development board by Tim Walz. And this implies somehow he's a Democrat, even though these are bipartisan boards filled with bureaucrats. And these conspiracy dorks have zeroed in this, including Maria Z. And it's just nonsense. And they're just peddling it. They're full of shit.
Well, Tim Walz did come forward, I think yesterday or probably Saturday, American time, said, look, I've never met the guy. I never met the person. So I had no direct link with him. Just as a little bit of a break, I don't want to go off on a tangent.
Go for it.
But the owner of Telegram, Joel, and we'll have a look at this in our next episode.
Yeah.
There's a growing, his thing, he's a former Russian. I don't think he's living in Russia anymore, but Telegram is the, free speech writ large sort of platform.
Yeah.
And now it seems that it's been built with a lot of Russian money.
Yeah, my lack of surprise. I mean, I knew it was a Russian guy, but yeah, as far as the origins of it and the purpose of it, it makes a lot of sense considering the way that Russia uses bots and disinformation and political manipulation, that they would try to encourage this idea of free speech and provide some kind of facilitating force for it. And Telegram is a perfect thing for that. If you go on there, it is a fucking cesspool. But look, I don't think that Twitter's that much better thise days, to be quite honest. It's really
his name is Pavel Durov.
Yes, that's
the
him.
Founder of Telegram. And I did have a look. Now, this is, I've been recommending this to our listeners for a long time. This is, you just get your emails. Yes, there is a paid facility with this thing, but you don't necessarily have to get it. It's called the Organised Crime and Corruption Reporting Project. The URL is OCCRP.org, and they've just found that Mr. Durov and his company have received, shall we say, a new investigation has revealed ties between a key Telegram infrastructure provider and Russian intelligence services.
My lack of surprise, Jack. Yeah, my fucking lack of surprise.
I don't know why anyone uses it, to be honest.
Well, they use it exactly why you think.
Yeah, so they can get away with shit. But when push comes to shove, they're not going to get away with it.
Dopamine hits from fucking sensationalist nonsense written up by people who know exactly what they're doing. But
sorry to take you off on a tangent because we need to get back to this story. There is this sort of disinformation going on around the assailant who has killed two people and severely wounded two others.
It's yet another tragedy being fucked with by idiots. And it's also one of those things that the tragedy is not just in the deaths, which is true, but also the erosion of democracy as an institution. When you see political violence like this in a place like the US, it just makes you sort of think, can we really pull this off? Can we keep doing this? And the alternatives just get worse and worse as you discuss them. So anyway, not going to go on that tangent because that's a fucking real rabbit hole. But just look, to cement the whole theory of this guy being a fucking Democrat, they have zeroed in also on the idea they both recently voted against their party, with Hortman supporting a repeal of free healthcare for illegals and undocumented migrants, and Hoffman joining Republicans in the Senate to pass it. Except Hoffman didn't vote to repeal free healthcare for undocumented migrants. Just didn't. It just didn't happen. Hortman did, And it was through like teary eyes. There's a whole story if you want to look into it. But regardless of whether Hortman voted on the bill, this isn't about crossing the floor to punish undocumented migrants, which is somehow exacting vengeance from this hardcore Democrat. This is because a recent budget bill passed by the federal government, the GOP, would cut funding to states that provide healthcare to undocumented people because they're fucking sociopaths. And this was set to cost the state $3 billion over the next decade, which is not small change to Minnesota. So the repeal bill became part of a budget deal struck between the Democrats and the Republican House, which needed to pass because they wanted to avoid a state government shutdown, and that's what they were facing. So as usual, it's not as simple as idiots would like people to think, but all they're doing is just desperately clutching up disinformation to try and make this partisan issue not their fucking problem. So her death has put Republicans ahead in the House by a single vote. And people are suggesting this is the motive for the shooting. I would say that appears unlikely. There's 70 people on the list, including a bunch of, pro-choice people. I don't think he was thinking that far into it.
Looking for a supermajority.
If fucking Republicans use this for political advantage, they will rue the day that they decided to rush legislation through that House with this little majority based on an assassination. That's next level fucking depravity.
All my sources were showing that Bolter is a really creepy Pentecostal type too, Christian nationalist.
Oh yeah, that's right. I did see he was doing some weird, like, angry preaching with some woman translating in French in real time. Real creepy shit.
Now, he could have been speaking in voices. Who knows?
Yeah.
But yeah, he looked certifiable there on that clip where he's just babbling 1,000 words a second.
Just screaming fucking nonsense. And in comparison, we're talking about a woman who's remembered fondly by her colleagues. They always are. But let's face it, one of the reasons why she's remembered fondly is the simple yet vitally important measure of giving kids at school free lunches and to make sure that no kids went hungry, and also making sure that the lunches were universally free to make sure that some kids weren't left without lunches because it stigmatized poor kids who couldn't afford to eat. Like, that's just decent person shit. And it's like, and this person's now dead because this cunt. Anyway, I'm annoyed. I'm really annoyed.
What do we do with him? He's in custody now. What do we do with him?
The courts to decide.
He's got to get a needle, surely.
I don't think it'd be an option in Minnesota.
Oh, you're right.
I wouldn't imagine
I don't think you have. You've got an option there.
Yeah, but, look, he'll spend a long time in jail.
He'll be hitting up the taxpayer. Look, I was glad that he's caught alive. You really do want to get these guys alive, because then if they are shot by police or commit suicide or whatever it is, their stories can get very blurred, as we've already seen.
Yeah.
But when they're still alive, it's a lot harder to do. So I was glad to see him being captured alive, and I hope he spends a very, very difficult time in prison.
I don't think he's going to enjoy
Minnesota, no death penalty.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Why don't we make an exception, Joel?
Cows have fucking masks on.
Everybody is up for the high jump if they deserve it. If they deserve to hang, they will hang.
Rise up, Australia. Men of Australia, time to step up and be real men. Protect your kids or go down biggest cowards this country has ever seen.
Now, as we predicted, which was quite predictable some time ago, the Cookers are just getting more sad and deranged as time goes on. As we discussed in the last episode, their electoral power is close to zero. Jared Rennick lost in Queensland by miles. I think when you extrapolate the Jared Rennick People First Party out of the little loose coalition he's involved with, including Hart and the Libertarians, man, he got nothing.
Just fuck all. Just nothing.
And I saw him in estimates a couple of weeks ago. I thought, yeah, good on you, mate. You make a nice big noise, because in a couple of weeks, you'll be fucking off.
Yeah,
for
you'll
good.
be fucking nobody.
Back to Rocky and being a tax accountant. Anyway, he lost by a mile. The New South Wales Joint Senate ticket between, that we just mentioned, that the Libertarians, Hart Party, the anti-vaxxers and Bible bashers, got about a sixth of the quota they need to get someone into the Senate.
Mm-hmm.
The trumpet of patriots flopped, and that was
Useless.
just a delicious thing. With even Clive saying, look, I can't afford this. I can't afford to make $100 million mistakes. I mean, I can, but I'd rather not.
Who would have thought that Tucker Carlson wasn't a good marketing strategy for an Australian party?
I know.
Who would have thought? Who would have thought? Embarrassing. I'm embarrassed just thinking
Most
about
of the right don't even like Tucker Carlson now.
No, he's a Russian agent. He thinks that it's a novel invention. That there's train stations and trolleys.
Here's my theory. I think he would like to. He's putting his hand up, saying, "Can you pay me some money, and I'll even be more pro-Russian."
He's like a Yankee Cossack.
Yeah, he's trying to wangle his way. Hey, they got the shopping trolleys where you put the coins in.
It's amazing. Wow. I love that at Tenet Media, when they had that thing saying that they had accepted money from Russians for Tim Pool and Benny Johnson and all those sort of guys, that they went, "Oh, we can't play the Tucker Carlson clip. That's too shilling. Like, it'll be so obvious that we are Russian agents if we play that fucking clip." And I'm like, wow, your shamelessness has got to a point where people who are trying desperately not to be outed as Russian agents are avoiding you.
It must have been a really slow week, because I just remember the Tucker Carlson interview
with Putin.
Well, he interviewed Putin, of course.
Like the 9-hour one?
Yeah, well, you know, if you're into listening to Vladimir Putin's take on 11th century East European history, and it's like, whoa, whoa.
So good.
I'm just
so
sleeping.
good.
Sorry. What was he saying? Anyway, the whole point of this little editorial is that the effort and expectation for the next election from Cookers is likely to be even less than this one. They're just getting their asses handed to them by the people.
It's not good. Yeah, it's not
Unless
good.
some kind of global event happens to trigger the Cookers H5N1.
H5N1, yeah.
They just aren't mainstream enough to warrant political representation. And they're starting to understand 2%, not enough.
Not enough.
1.5%, less than 2%, also not enough.
And I know what you're all saying. I know what you're all thinking. Soz and Sandy are probably pointing their fingers at me and saying, what about Cooker Councils? What about Cooker Councils? Well, you're right, Cooker Councils. But as we all know, and as they know as well, they Bradbury'd their way in. And while, okay, incumbency's a bitch, I don't think it's going to go well for them. We know they Bradbury'd in because after the Liberal candidates failed to register their nominations in time for the deadline, the right-wing vote was just swept up by Cookers. Yeah. That's not going to happen again. That's like double disillusion shit.
Well, you sure? I wouldn't be too sure about the efficiency of the New South Wales Liberal Party going forward, Joe.
Oh, mate, look, I know, like, they might be useless, but this is a whole other story.
In 3 years' time, going, oh, shit, we've done it again. Sorry, everyone.
Oh, please don't. I mean, look, they probably enjoy it because these cookers are probably more effective than they are. But look, when it comes down to it, most of the local councils, I would believe, outside of a few places like up north around Cessnock, that they just turn their councils into a clown show, and the fucking, like, the locals will notice. You know, the council should be neither seen nor heard, and I don't think that's been happening in some of these places. But look, they will face a serious challenge returning to their positions, I would say. Like some, let's just say like maybe Townsville Mayor Troy Thompson, who has been suspended on full pay as his position has become untenable, which is a very nice political way of saying he's a bit of a cunt.
Yeah. Told a few porkies.
He has.
You know.
He's a fun guy.
I mean, I think if you listen to him, you know, he was responsible for the victory at Waterloo.
Yes, basically, yes. He has fudged his military history, apparently, which I'm not going to go into.
You know, as it turns out, he drove a truck for 6 months, you know.
Oh, well, that's impressive. But look, you know, he drove a truck charging toward the enemy, I'm sure. His campaign slogan, I love this so much, is if nothing changes, nothing changes.
Yeah.
Which is good. Do you like that? That's good.
That's deep.
Hey, Jack, if nothing changes... Nothing changes.
Nothing changes.
Nothing changes.
I mean, if nothing changes, nothing will change. Might make a little bit more sense and be grammatically correct.
That would work. But nothing changes, nothing changes.
Nothing changes. If nothing changes, nothing changes.
Nothing changes. The words are starting to lose meaning in my head. They are. So many times.
It's just repetitive. That's probably what he's going for. It will become an earworm.
It's the kind of thing like a kid says and like really feels really proud of themselves for being super smart.
Yeah,
but you're like, good job, Johnny. You're an A-grade student.
Field Marshal Troy Thompson.
And my favourite thing that he's done here is the recent revelation that he's been caught using fake names on social media to defend himself and attack other councillors.
Caught doing the old Angus Taylor stuff. Look, I think this Troy Thompson. This was Was it in the
Townsville Bulletin.
Townsville Bulletin? I was going to say the Cairns Post. Townsville Bulletin. Just this. I tell you what, this Troy Thompson sounds like a fine man.
Yeah, he deserves his full pay. He deserves his paid holiday. Fantastic, great move. Well done, Troy. You all know the drill.
He'd left his email.
Just fucking chucked his email
so many years ago. Just
he called himself Barry.
I'm a sock puppet, but I'm a real idiot with technology, so
exactly.
I'm going to leave myself exposed to doing this.
Just make a Barry email address. It's just embarrassing. I love it. I love how shit cookers are at these things. So look, the only way that I can see a cookie getting into federal positions of parliament, or in the Senate really, is a double dissolution, which won't happen unless the Greens turn on Labor in a major way, which would not end well for them. So I just don't see it. There's just no way.
I don't see it. And
double
dissolution at this time, it could just about be the end of the Liberal Party.
Yeah, it'll be the end of the Liberal Party, but also the end of the Greens, because they
it wouldn't do the Greens any good either.
No, I wouldn't vote Green. I voted Green last election. I fucking would vote Green if they made a double dissolution trigger. I'm like, mate, there's a mandate. Leave it the fuck alone. Put things through Parliament and just influence the Labor Party to do more Green, like I voted for you to do.
Yeah, well,
anyway.
two-party preferred. I think the final was 55.07.
Was that? I thought it was more.
Labor's two-party preferred vote.
I thought it was like 58.
No, it came down with
postals,
the postals and all that sort of stuff a bit. It was, I think it was sort of 56, 57 at one point, but I never saw it at 58. But 55.07, I think is, but that might not be the final, so don't quote me on that. But 55.45, that's a smashing. That's a mandate.
Mm-hmm. It is, and I don't think many people would disagree with that. But we do have people in the media, and by the media I mean extreme, fringe, right-wing nobodies that nobody seems to give a fuck about, and are basically just poisoning the well and creating narratives that are making them unelectable. So, I mean,
it.
And it's not even
even the
Nationals.
Successful. The Nationals today have rejected, or over the weekend have rejected. Certainly, I think it's the New South Wales branch. Canavan was boasting about it today that they're the Nats are going to withdraw from the 2050 commitments.
Amazing.
And to 2050 Paris commitments. And you just think, where do you think you guys are going to go?
Yeah. But like they're just keeping their jobs at this point. Well, they're keeping their pre-selections because Barry Cassidy, he was saying that like some Liberal guy was saying to him, I've got to go watch Sky News After Dark because I've got to be able to talk to my branch members tomorrow. Because that's what they're all talking about. That's the hot topics. But I mean, it's everywhere on the right wing sort of media circuit. And like to get an idea of how popular this shit is, TNT Radio died last year. It just fucking died, and it wasn't even like successful. It was because two businessmen pulled out money because they probably realized they weren't getting value for the so-called influence. And it was just Cooker Radio. No one really gave a fuck about it. And like, this is their attempt to be like a mainstream media outlet. They really did try and make this whole like, it's free speech, we're uncancelable. But it's just far-right extremist nonsense. And this is not what Australians want to consume as a mainstream media source. It's just not the case. There is a market for right-wing media, but far-right media is a small market. And I'm sorry, it's not profitable. It just fucking isn't. You can't get by on local Sparkies advertising on your fucking shitty radio station with 1,000 people listening.
It has to be funded by, wealthy benefactors.
Which it was. And they gave up on it because apparently it really wasn't return on investment. So, I mean, fuck you. But
this is an interesting quote, Joel. Go ahead.
So this quote comes from the CEO of TNT, Mike Ryan, and he said, because we're a free speech platform, what we've found is no one really wants free speech. That's now, so embarrassing.
Let me just interrupt you. That's Dennis's son.
No.
It is. It's Mike Ryan. I saw him last week. He wanted me to come on the show and talk about tech companies and data.
You were
data
saying
management.
that his son was involved in TNT, but I did not put that together when I put that in the script. Oh, that's so embarrassing. Oh,
he's not
man.
A bad guy. I actually, we were talking politics at the wake a little bit. I didn't, I was sort of being a bit circumspect because I know his politics can be a bit out there, but.
Well, you don't want to cause problems.
No. And look, overtly, Mike's a nice guy, but he was virulently anti-Trump.
What?
And virulently anti Thiel, virulently anti Musk.
Okay. So he's a
So
good
that's
conspiracy
kind of
theorist
where
type.
I think.
That's interesting.
Well, it certainly is where he's going. Whether it's TNT are going that way, or the shall we say the firm to far right are going. And if they're going there, they probably deserve a pat in the back. I mean, we really do need to have a look at what's going on with our data.
I was going to be looking at the Palantir thing, but I figure it's a bigger story. I've been listening to podcasts today, but not listening to left-wing stuff, listening to right-wing stuff. And yeah, wow, a lot of MAGA types are up in arms about what's happening with Palantir and the use of data to round up legal immigrants.
Yeah.
They all know they're next.
Yeah, exactly.
And
right.
once it's in, the Democrats have a control over that system. And then what are you going to do?
What are you going to do? I
You're
mean,
getting rounded
what
up.
you should be doing is dragging Thiel out of his comfy little home and
His
putting
comfy
a wrap
little
around
island.
his neck.
Yeah. I mean, look, I don't like him at all, but I do still believe in due process. I do hope that something changes.
Well, yeah, yes. Look, I shouldn't say that either, but he needs.
He needs to be stopped.
He's not the only one, but he is easily the most sinister one. Well, he and Musk.
Well, he's an extension of Curtis Yarvin, and they all are. But Vance, Musk, and Teal are genuine end of days motherfuckers. Yeah. It's not good. It's really not good at all. So, look, when it comes to old Mike, I don't want to continue sticking into him, considering that his father just died. But yeah, he's
no. We mentioned to him, I
failed.
actually said to him, obviously he was unaware of this quote, but I actually said to him, I said, "Are you with TNT?" And he goes, "No, they've dudded us."
Yeah, well, that's because the businessmen bailed out.
So
the funders left.
He's still doing stuff, but I don't. And like I said, he was very keen to have me on the show to talk about. And he produces. I think he's not on air, but
no, he is on air. According to the Cam Wilson article that
I'd happily chat on. Yeah, as you know, with that sort of failed effort around the vax debate, I have no aversion to meeting sort of political foes from across the board. I think there's something to be said about having conversations with them. So anyway.
I had a bloody great chat with John Ruddock after that. I think Ruddock's sort of radicalized himself on Twitter a lot since then, but he was quite reasonable and he stuck to his guns. As far as a libertarian goes, one of his mates was in there having a bit of a crack about abortion, and Ruddock had some interesting things to say, which I was pretty impressed with. And he didn't just kowtow to his mate, who was clearly trying to get on board the party because he seemed like a numbers guy in the Liberal Party.
Oh, look, he's no dill. I mean,
I refuse to think he's an idiot, but man, some of the posts he makes, fuck.
Look, I think the libertarian philosophy, I mean, as vacuous as it is a really easy thing to adopt and promote until you get to some of the real complexities around public administration. And then they don't have any answers.
Yeah.
It's just so when you ask them about abortion, abortion, it should be everyone's right, and women's right. And you go, okay, well, that's an enlightened view. Maybe these libertarians aren't so bad, but then...
Well, he quoted the Freakonomics thing of crime rates and abortion, which was an interesting way to go.
I mean, you wouldn't call it absolutely anything more than a correlation, but
it's a correlation, of course. But it was an interesting conversation that went a certain way. I just think that when it comes to libertarianism does not need to involve bigotry, and yet it's decided to go that path to get clout.
That's something I would definitely agree with you about.
And I strongly disagree with that approach, and I strongly disagree to a point of like a passionate approach, as opposed to things like. We could talk about whether for-profit utilities are a good thing or whether they should be in public hands. We can talk about that all day long. You want to talk about Ayn Rand shit and Keynesianism and all that sort of stuff? I had that chat. But when it comes to like punching down on
I know, couldn't agree
things
more.
like that, then we start disagreeing in a way that I feel quite protective over those. Who are being
racism is the line that I won't cross. So when you talk about putting your hand across the aisle and saying, well, let's have a conversation. I'm not going to have a conversation with someone who is virulently racist, virulently xenophobic. These people don't need to be platformed. We've got enough of them here as it is.
No, and that's not where I put Ruddock in the spectrum of things.
not at all. No,
But
and I
I
wouldn't
think
put
he's-
Mike Ryan in there either, by the way. But
he's flirting with people who are, which I don't like.
Yeah,
And
most
he's
definitely.
platforming people who are. Well, I'm not saying Mike.
who are
I'm saying
prepared to
myself.
use immigration to create a whole lot of social pressures that don't exist.
And as straw men for problems that aren't actually attributable to immigration. So, I mean, fuck
Saying
that
the
shit.
same thing. All right.
Anyway.
Well, moving on.
So, in summary, the Cookerverse has taken an electoral beating, and that is objectively evident as a
Body's being
as, yeah,
smacked.
just smacked. And this whole thing of seeing, like, in the comment section, man, and I cannot believe this is the case, but time for another booster is still a go-to majority of an online post on discussions on Facebook. Are you bots? Are you serious? I start to wonder. I start to fucking wonder. And if you look at things like My Place, I'm not keeping an eye on My Place, and the TT girls probably are. But let's face it, man. Like, we haven't heard much.
Yeah.
It's a cult.
Not going to take over the world from Frankston Council, are you?
They were very concerning for a while. They looked like they were really going to start getting a lot of foothold in councils, and maybe they are.
Oh, they are very concerning people.
Maybe they are still like a
Bergwerth
real electoral
in
force.
particular, but
They're very organised.
If you're going to take over the world, I'd suggest local government living in Australia is a fair way. You're going to have to do a bit of climbing from there.
It does have a bit impact though. It has a serious impact on people.
Does, yeah, it certainly
so, like,
does.
you know, it is still
But
concerning.
Worse, push comes to shove, the state government just puts in an administrator and sacks a lot of them. You know, that's easy. And you want to know why that's easy? Because the right argued that we shouldn't actually enshrine local government in the Australian Constitution.
Thanks, guys.
So now it's just a state issue, and
It's just a legislated body.
Remember, the Minister for Local Government in any state or indeed territory can just turn around and say, "You know what? I don't like the colour of you guys," and that's the end of that. They go into an admin.
But they've got a lot of tolerance for things. If you look up around Cessnock area, if you look down in Cooma with Andrew Taylor.
Yeah, I know. Look,
Troy Thompson
I'm not
up
trying
there.
to trivialise it. It is significant. Yeah.
There's a lot of cunts. But, like, at the same time, like I say, this was basically due to the fact they Bradburyed it on the back of the Liberal Party incompetence. And I don't see that continuing. I do see one thing continuing, which is little cooker craft fairs with My Place. Selling copper necklaces to stop the mobile phones giving you turbo cancer or reception, of course. And, maybe some trinkets and maybe some, sort of raw milk lemon cake, which is pasteurized by the fact that it's cooked. But hey, don't worry, it doesn't get you
That'll
sick.
kill people by the thousand.
So, look, they are still pretty funny, though. But I like to think that the mainstream threat is gone, but we do still have a sinister underbelly of very unstable people.
Yeah,
which need to be kept an eye
We're
on.
very, very, very lucky that we do have people like the Tinfoil Tales ladies who are keeping an eye on those characters
And should be basically paid by Australian intelligence to be keeping an eye on them, because clearly Australian intelligence aren't fucking doing their job. Anyway, another story. But look, I still think there's funny cookers. There's a few of them. They still exist. They're very loud. And look, between all the sad and weird shit, we can still find joy. And there's none funnier, in my humble opinion, than Monica Smith. Now, most of you will be familiar with her plan to privately prosecute Dan Andrews and Jacinda Allen. Jacinda Allen, why? Okay. Like, it's fairly obvious why they're upset with Dan Andrews, despite it having been years since they were mildly inconvenienced by lockdowns. It's really, like, what are they charging Jacinda Allen with? I don't know. But, like,
I will find something.
Yeah, well, it doesn't even
All
matter.
I know is that we'll have a fair trial and we'll hang her in the morning.
Exactly. So fucking dumb. So, look, I think I'm getting ahead of myself here, because this is assuming that this is ever going to get past the fundraising stage, which is super unlikely. So the fundraiser has recently stopped donations, and the private prosecution link is no longer on the Reignite Moxie webpage, although you can still find it via links online. And the page states, "We aren't raising funds at the moment. We are currently undergoing an investigation which will determine the legal strategy. Subscribe at the bottom of the page to stay updates." Classic Monica.
Yeah, according to the page, which has been found to be manually reported by RDA, so, just whacking in a few bits and bobs here.
Just casually.
$134,722 has been raised and $5,660 spent, mainly on balloons. They love balloons. Anyway, no, her latest spend was to officially engage a PI, a private investigator, for 10 hours work.
10 hours.
Which will build the case against Dan. 10 hours work.
10 billable.
Yeah, it's no more than, it wouldn't be maybe 1,500.
Yeah.
1,500 for 10 hours for the PI. It depends on who the PI is, but if it's just, you picked him out of the yellow pages, so to speak, that's about what you'll get.
Well, we'll get on to that, but we can't say who the PI is.
No, well, I suppose, I don't know why we can't.
No, she explains this.
Why?
Well, it's very serious. This is a career-altering move. So is
it a licensed public inquiry agent?
Apparently.
Well, it has to be. Well,
otherwise you can't really say you're a private investigator, right?
So, and those things are not that hard to obtain. That license is not that hard to obtain. I had one for a number of years in New South Wales.
I want to hear so much more about that too.
And I don't know what a PI is going to do. I mean, you might be able to
he's going to build the
Joel,
case.
but he's either going to put Dan under surveillance, which is pretty unlikely, and one might be very tricky if Dan says, "Hey, have you noticed that that yellow Toyota Corolla again? You're going to call the police."
Yeah,
and
pretty much.
There'll be issues around stalking and what have you. The other stuff, what's a PI going to do? I mean, I just don't understand. What's a PI going to do?
I don't know.
Read newspaper clippings?
That's kind of what I thought. Yeah, just read newspaper clippings and just compile a brief. For some reason, she's decided a PI is the most fucking qualified person to do that. She's an idiot, by the way. I don't know if you remember this, but she's an idiot.
I want to talk briefly about her motivations, and that is, having watched her from afar for a long time, you just get the feeling that she's gone too far to back away now. She can't disappear from the scene.
The dog has caught the car.
She can't just go and be normal, like a normal person with a normal job. I mean, I guess that's the first question: who would employ her?
Well, they can Google her, and it'd be problematic for 99% of employers.
Yeah, it would be a little problematic if you're certainly going for that big corporate job. They're going to go, no, not sure about this one.
She might slip through on real estate, which is her previous profession.
Well, it was real estate of a kind. Wasn't she selling modular homes?
Something like that.
Anyway, it doesn't really matter. But what I'm saying is, and like a lot, it's not just Monica, it's like a lot of these cookers. They can't walk away. They're in for life.
But they're also addicted to the dopamine hit. Going and doing a normal job is so unsatisfying. That's the payoff.
But once committed, once they've said, I will do this until the day I die, and then turning around a year later going, I'm really sick of this. I really like to get a job and then go on holiday and be normal. But they can't. They just can't.
Yeah, it's really, really tricky. I mean, Fanos is probably still a bouncer somewhere in Melbourne. Romeo George's, he always wore high vis. He's probably doing his roofing or whatever the fuck he did. I'm sure the TT girls know.
Most of them are out there working, and you'd only know if you're on the crew with them, and you're having lunch one day, and they go, "So how many times you've been vaxxed?"
Yeah. Okay. Here we go.
Here we go. So carry on, Joe. Carry on with Monica.
According to Monica, Dan is guilty of dozens of crimes. Dozens.
Dozens of crimes.
But they need to make sure the charges stick, and that's what the PI is for. So apparently the 10 hours of this private dick is going to sort that out.
10 hours?
Yeah. Yes, I don't know. So she did say this is a career-altering case for them to take on. And I think we both agree it is career-altering. I don't think it's in a good way, though. I think it might be career-altering in a bad way. A lot of public inquiry
agents are ex-coppers.
People who say
it's a fairly
yes to this
sort
job.
of common go-to job for them. It may not be the case with this guy, whoever he is. I just don't understand, but knowing what PIs do, having been one myself, I just don't understand how this guy's 10 hours going to make any difference at all. I mean, what's he going to do? Is he going to go to the golf course that Dan's playing at and ask if he was rude to the woman at the kiosk? I mean, I don't understand.
So, Jack, what I'd argue is that you're not meant to know what the PI is doing because A, it's a secret, and B, you're not as smart as Monica Smith.
10 hours,
Yeah, it's nothing. This entire thing's fucking
It's
stupid.
really nothing. At least two of those are going to be in the car.
Two of those are going to be basically taking a shit. I mean, like, look, Monica can't tell us who the PI is. She can't tell us who the lawyers are, but they definitely exist. And I'm telling you right now, this PI is the girlfriend I had in year 9 that went to another school.
Yeah, she went.
You can't meet her. Her dad's a
No.
cop.
Yeah.
Fucking whatever.
Yeah, I get it. What was the one in the Brady Bunch? His Jan's boyfriend, made-up boyfriend, was something glass because she saw a glass on the table and just came up with that as a surname.
Excellent. That is so good and dumb.
That could be Glass PI.
Fantastic. I love it. I love the fact that you slipped in a fucking original Brady Bunch mention in there. That is good. But look.
That's how I grew up with these girls and boys.
Yeah, and you clearly learned some lessons from them as well. So look, she's apparently no longer dipping her hand in the trust fund. I'm guessing maybe an actual lawyer said maybe don't dip your hand into the trust fund. That could be a thing. I don't know.
So
look,
what, the trust fund with the $134,722 in it?
According to her self-reporting, yes.
Yeah,
we actually don't know how
yeah.
much it is.
Yeah.
But look, she doesn't need the money. Don't worry, Jack. She doesn't need the money because she's actually making plenty of money selling her book, various shit merchandise, and some weird scented tallow. I wish I was kidding. She's selling scented tallow.
That doesn't sound like a catalogue that would make a lot of money.
No.
I'm selling her book. It's been out now for 2 years, really, hasn't it? And so sales of that,
1,000 copies?
Having written a few in my time, sales of that in the third year are not going to be great.
Yeah, Jack, but did you sell lavender beef fat? Because that's where the money's at. It's e-commerce, Jack.
That's where the big money is.
It's e-commerce.
Scented also tallow. Who wants scented tallow? I mean, tallow I'd buy, but
heaps people.
Scented?
Heaps people want it. It's all the rage. Also, devices that stop you from getting mobile reception. I mean, they protect you from mobile signals.
Yeah, who was into that last? They had... Oh, it was
David Neegs is doing it.
No, the alleged rapist. He was selling you wore this as a sort of amulet.
Russell Brand.
Brand was selling the amulet that
the amulet.
You walk into an airport and you won't be, one of those.
I'll be zapped by nonsense.
Enjoy jail, scumbag.
I know, get fucked, right? I saw a movie with him last night and I just wanted to puke. Anyway.
I'm watching no movies with that scumbag in them.
So look, the last update in this important mission to privately prosecute Dan Andrews was indeed May 22nd, where she's hired this mysterious Pink Panther to fucking fix everything in 10 hours. Since then, crickets, of course, but don't worry, Monica is still on the case, sort of, not really. She posted this on June 12th.
I've been MIA for a few days. Smiley face. There's the colon hyphen close bracket. Needed a break from screens and see, she's overworking herself looking at a computer for an hour a day. Needed a break from screens and routine, but I'm back and ready to rustle some feathers.
Amen, baby.
Don't you ruffle feathers? Don't rustle. You don't rustle feathers. You rustle leaves. These are feathers. They need to be ruffled. Monica, this is why you're failing. I learned so much from the last election. That's a huge thing, comma.
Yeah.
I have changed my perspective on everything.
Everything.
Moving forward.
Everything.
Like abortion. Yeah, I had a crack at her on, where was that? Was that on X?
Yeah, that rings a bell.
I had a crack at her on, she's talking about freedom. I said, well, what about freedom of, what about the women's reproductive freedom? She just went, she went off the reservation a little bit. She's easy to suck in. Anyway, she's learned a lot from the last election, like how to fucking lose or back the losers or put the losers together and then hope they'll win. I'm done playing in fairyland. Too much energy has been wasted on things, scented tallow, possibly, that just make us feel good and morally superior, but achieve nothing.
Nothing.
Sounds like she's going to join the Greens. Strategy over feelings, I'd say. I want results. Who's with me?
Yeah. So that doesn't sound like she's focusing her energy on the private prosecution. It sounds like she's already actually quite bored with her six-figure moneymaker, and he's looking to the next venture, whatever that fucking may be. Who's with me, guys? Who's with me to do something nebulous and nondescript, but not the thing that has $130,000 in it? Ugh. Send it, Tallow. I mean, honestly, fucking guys.
Get a job. Mine. Go and get a job. I know you're virtually unemployed, but at least try.
At least try. At least make your new start payments worthwhile. Fuck me.
Hey there, Mr. MAGA Man. What's with that there ankle band? Why does it beep when you hear a school? I'll bet you thought you had them fooled. When it comes to felony sex fest, it's always the ones you most expect.
So, as we expected, this segment is absolutely unable to keep up the volume of MAGA pedos who preach family values and the dangers of drag queens while being the exact thing they are so publicly horrified of. As they say, every accusation is a confession. But my God, there are too many of these creeps to count.
Just so many to choose from. Every time I see one, I flick it to Joel, and I looked at the collection we had that included just individual reports in the United States. MAGA guys, J6 scumbags, Pentecostal God botherers. And in two cases, on a website called Right Wing Watch, they had compiled a list of them. It's just so many. I mean, it's like an epidemic of offending.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you're a criminal investigator, be the first people you'd be knocking on the door of.
Yeah.
But let's start local.
Let's do it.
A serial protester who previously held up a placard stating, and I quote, "Stop sexualizing our children," has denied allegations he sexually touched 5 children at Jamboree Action Park. Far from me. Coniston man Adam Albanese, 20. Our children, Adam? At 20, appeared before Wollongong Local Court on Wednesday, September 11. This is last year, I presume, Joe. 2 separate matters were also mentioned, which Albanese initially denied, with a hearing set down for February 24. Prosecutor Hollander told the court Albanese allegedly sexually touched 5 complainants at the popular water park south of Wollongong in Jamboree on September 12, 2023. He was found guilty by plea of touching a teenage girl in the Shoalhaven in a previous incident on April 2023, has pleaded not guilty to the 5.
Oh, no, he did. He pled guilty.
He's now pleaded, has he? Yeah, go on.
No, he did. So I just want to take a side note and say that at no point have we made a "you control the action" joke, and I think that's something we should be proud of.
Yeah, that is something we should be proud of. I mean,
it's just sitting there in plain sight, but this is kind of grim.
We're just not doing it because this is fucking awful stuff.
He's a piece of shit. So months later, Albanese was part of a group protesting against Rainbow Storytime event at Thurl Library.
After his first conviction.
Yeah. Oh, he's well. This was the incident.
So 2 months after he was found guilty of touching a teenage girl in the Shoalhaven,
he's out protesting Rainbow Storytime,
and he turned up at a Rainbow Storytime event at Thurl Library.
That is, it's quite brave. It's quite brave.
3 months. I'm sorry.
Well, look, who's counting? But yeah, it's pretty fucking embarrassing. And of course, he's there taking photos of the event, participating like some kind of fucking proper legend. He also was an active voice in the Vote No campaign.
Oh, was he?
To the Indigenous voice referendum in October 23. And he also has been seen attending a rally against offshore wind farms because, let's face it, this guy... He's an NPC, he's just doing the current thing. He's going with the flow, as they say, between sexually assaulting children, this piece of shit. So yes, he did plead guilty to 6 counts of intentionally sexually touching a child between 10 and 16, and also 2 counts of common assault. He was handed a 12-month jail sentence with a non-parole period of 4 months, and he appealed the sentence, and he has since been released on bail.
What?
Yeah. The appeal.
He gets 4 months.
4 months.
Let's face it, that's all he's going to serve.
And he's
and
appealed.
there'd be an element of time served in there too. I'm sure, as you say, he's been bailed and so forth, but there would have been a period of incarceration.
Well,
So
look,
it's less than 4 months, and he's appealed the sentence.
We'll get to the mitigating factors and why they seem associated with his political beliefs in a bit. But Magistrate David Williams released Albanese on strict conditions, including prohibitions on owning any internet-enabled devices. So he's going to have a rough time. But he also being in the direct company of anyone under 18 and entering Jamberoo Action Park and a specific Illawarra suburb, which I'm guessing is somewhere where a victim resides.
Yes.
The court heard Albanese indicated he would plead guilty to possessing 102 child abuse material files.
Yeah.
This is what he was also on a suspended sentence. Well, his appealed sentence, with court documents stating that 54 of those files were deemed in the highest category of seriousness, so child abuse material. One of the files was titled "Underage Goddess on a Beach.jpg."
Yeah, but when they're talking about deemed in the highest category of seriousness, what you have there is not just images of underage.
It's child abuse
children.
material.
This is highly sexualized material, often including pain and torture.
It's not good.
I don't understand. I can't even begin to understand why this bloke has been locked up. But keep going, Joe.
So, tendered court documents state Albanese pawned a laptop and a mobile phone at Cash Savvy on Crown Street in January 2023, with staff later finding child abuse material when they went to reset the devices. Naughty, silly boy. And the silliness is a part of the mitigating later. So during sentencing, defense lawyer Lewis Etheridge said Albanese's lack of insight had to be looked at in the context of his mild intellectual disability and youth at the time of his offending, as well as the childhood trauma he has suffered. So think about it this way. Cooker beliefs, fucking idiot. That's a mitigating sentence. Okay, cool. Fair enough. Great. So he's an idiot. That's the defense? Look, if I ever commit a crime, please send me an affidavit saying I'm a fucking moron.
Yeah, you're a moron and you've had unspeakable trauma.
I've been to a vote no rally. Maybe that's because I'm a fucking idiot. Cool. Anyway, so look, as a chaser to that, we're going to move on past our local cooker who is
appealing the sentence. He got 4 months.
I know, right? Like I have glazed over that.
Surely the Crown prosecutor or the director of public prosecution say, yeah, sure, we'll appeal it too.
Yeah, no, true. Just like Raina Cruz, who we really should be covering this week, but we'll come back to her. Look, Your Honour, he's an idiot. Case closed.
He's a moron.
Problem solved. He's an idiot. He's a fucking moron.
Yeah, he can barely tie his own shoelaces up. And, yes, he's an unrestrained moron.
Have you seen his political beliefs? This man is a fool. Case closed. Problem solved. Let him out. Don't worry about it. It's fine. Fuck me. Anyway, so we got a bit of a chase out of that because it's always good to do things that are more divorced from reality, and that is the United States of what the fuck is going on over there. And in that, we have Ryan Utterback. I love that name, Utterback. It's like
it's a beauty.
Your response to me is illegible and mumbling. That's Liz complains about that for me. Utterback.
I think it'll be a mongrelization of a German name. That's my view.
I'd say so. He's a mongrelization of a person at this point.
Yeah, by the sounds of things.
He's an activist.
He was a big book banner, LGBTQ books, teaching our children to be gay.
That's right. And I tell you what, there is a great quote from him, which you are going to love and you're going to say. This is what he said about banning LGBTQIA books in a North Kansas library in Kansas City.
Kansas City, Missouri.
In Missouri, because that's the weird thing.
He said, this is Ryan Utterback, only I have the intimate understanding of what is and isn't appropriate for my children.
Which is, of course, a bit alarming considering he's charged with furnishing pornographic material to a minor 4-year-old.
What?
And that's what he's charged with. Who knows what the fuck else he's been up to? A 4-year-old.
Yeah, that's furnishing or providing pornographic material to a minor who is a 4-year-old. He's also up for child molestation charges and domestic assault charges.
Yeah, it's not good.
An outstanding citizen all round, isn't he?
And you know what? We should definitely deport the migrants because that guy needs to stay. It's just embarrassing.
Look, I got to tell you, listeners, we could run this segment which we have now decided to call
always the ones you most
expect. We
Yes.
could run this for 1,000 years. There is
It's
just
so
so
fun.
much material, and every day brings more. Having said that, it is a bit unsettling, and if any
It
listeners
is, yeah.
find this segment to be a bit too much, please let us know. We're not trying to mock the victims of sexual abuse. What
No.
we're trying to point out is the hypocrisy of these people
Exactly.
claiming that they are all about the protection of children when they're out there molesting them and causing them lifelong trauma.
Exactly. No, it's an important thing to clarify this. Look, and to tell you we're serious, the website, just this one website, Republican Sexual Predators, has to date 1,389 entries. So, yes, we can run this segment forever. But look, do send us an email or send us a message because, like, look, these bigoted hypocrites are full of just horrible human beings. Their ranks are loaded with cunts. And it's just so wild to think that some dickhead who thought that LGBTQ books should be banned is sharing porn with a 4-year-old. And that's what they've got enough evidence to allege. Fuck me. That's just wild shit to me. So, like, I just find that absolutely fascinating. But
It really is. And when you get to the number of Pentecostal religious figures who've been charged with child sex offending, it's almost like what you're looking at from perhaps the Roman Catholic Church in the 50s and the Anglican Church. Let's not just single out Catholicism.
yeah, fair.
Because, you know, their priests and ministers had pretty much unrestrained contact
Carte
with
blanche.
children.
Yeah.
And here's the same things going on. The Roman Catholic Church has been through its reforms. I was at the funeral last week. I noticed that altar boys are no longer a thing, certainly at this church. The altar men, including one guy, they both looked a bit dishevelled, I got to say, the two older altar men. And after communion was handed out, I didn't get up from the pew to take communion, just in case anyone's wondering. There'd be lightning damage to that church if I ever did. And anyway, so he's packing it all up, and I was just keeping an eye on this guy, and there's probably about 3 good mouthfuls left of communion wine, and he looked around and then he just sculled it. I don't think anyone was prepared to say anything, but the bloke I was sitting next to also saw it too, and we started laughing.
That's very good.
So no altar men, no altar boys, but altar men at the Sacred Heart Church in Mildura. Yeah, look, it is a difficult one, but what we're seeing is this sort of Pentecostal group, and there's no sort of control. There's not going to be people within the higher levels of that church to say stop.
Yeah,
the first
not
thing
a
they're going to
hierarchical
do
group,
is what these other institutions have done in the past, and that is let us protect the good name of the church or the good name of the institution that we all belong to first. And if that means dudding victims, then so be it. So it just gets worse and worse and worse.
Yeah, it's just a new victim
Anyway,
factory.
are we on the right track with this, listeners? Let us know. We certainly are not in the business of mocking victims of sexual assault.
No, if you weren't
But
you,
we are in the business
would
of mocking the fucking
apprehensive.
idiots, the hypocrites who perpetrate it.
Your political compass on this, I think, is pretty strong, so I tend to trust it. But I just thought, maybe we'll just have a little bit of a temperature test, because if some of our listeners feel a bit triggered by this sort of stuff, we don't want to make light of it. But at the same time, fuck me, there's a lot of MAGA pedos, mate.
Wow.
Oof.
Wow.
Jesus.
We fired you, we sacked you, we dismissed you as what? As garbage, because that's all you are. You're a criminal, you're a traitor, and you're going to the biggest barbecue in history. So from Christmas dinner to you are the dinner.
Thank you. That's what I'll go with.
And in SovCits this week, Peter Thomas McDougall was just travelling in a light plane when he crashed into a beach at Ball Bay, 35 kilometres north of Mackay in North Queensland on Christmas Eve 2021 as an unlicensed pilot.
Can't be that hard to fly a plane, Joe.
No, just,
a few of these levers, you'll get the hang of it.
Joystick up, joystick down. I did that as a video game. The much less funny part is that Peter Thomas McDougall, who can't fly for shit, killed his passenger, 83-year-old Jerry Miltenberg, in the process, which is not as funny.
It hit Ball Bay pretty hard, and
hard enough.
Jerry Miltenberg did not survive the crash.
No.
Now, the DPP, the state prosecutor's office in Queensland dropped the manslaughter charges last year, and McDougall has not entered a plea to another 17 aviation charges, including operating and maintaining unregistered aircraft dating back to 2011 and failing to surrender his pilot's license. How old is he?
He's 63 or some shit, I think.
I thought he was a little bit older
57
than
or
that.
something.
But anyway, McDougall is not the only SovCit who's been travelling in a plane. Free citizen William Brian Marson of Anchorage, Alaska, also came undone when he almost caused a mid-air crash after failing to radio his intention to take off and just randomly flying in the direction of landing planes.
Fucking
It's
idiot.
whatever I want to feel. It's what I want to. It's just what I want to feel. Fucking hell. Still can't say it.
I'm just
I'm
traveling.
going to do whatever I feel like.
That's right, including in the air where it's really safe.
Yeah. Marson did not enter a plea per se, but he did say, nothing stands between me, myself, and the Creator. I am innocent. In which the judge said, well, I'll take that as a not guilty plea.
Yeah,
He was found guilty and sentenced to 3 years probation and a $10,000 fine. No flying any more planes. Cut that out.
Yeah, lucky though. That's fucking light. They were looking for 5 years probation. Honestly, I don't know why he didn't get jail time.
It's just so crazy. But back in Australia, Peter of the family name McDougall is a living man and not bound by our laws. He can just zoom around the skies as much as he'd like, probably dropping chemtrails.
Good.
He represented himself in court, of course he did, and refused to be tried before our fictitious legal system.
You see, yes, this red-blooded rebel declared, quote, I can't participate in this kangaroo court. I'll bid you all a very good day before walking out of the building.
I loved that when I read that.
Isn't it the best?
I bid you all a very good day, sir, to the judge, and then just walked out of the court building.
Which is fantastic because at this point, the judge just said, fair enough. And he flew away from the courtroom in a stolen helicopter.
No, that didn't happen.
No, it
that
didn't happen. No.
So, look, if you can't fly a plane, you're not going to be able to fly a helicopter. A lot more involved. You get your feet going there.
Yeah,
the
joystick's got like 8 directions.
Hands,
it's no good.
and it's all, what is it? Not yin and yang, but...
Look, it sounds like you've been flying unlicensed. That's what I'm saying.
Anyway, so he didn't fly off in a stolen helicopter. He was arrested outside on the steps of the courtroom and brought back in. I bid you farewell.
Yes,
and
for now.
Then, about 5 minutes later, he was dragged back into court. The free man above the land, McDougall, declared in court that the Civil Aviation Act of 1988 was unlawful and that it applied only to commercial pilots, not for an experimental aircraft.
What the fuck is that? Experimental aircraft?
Who's buying tickets to get on an experimental aircraft?
Well, apparently he was charging, but yeah, that's
God,
all
he's
the
83. He's poor old 83-year-old bloke. Jerry Miltenberg.
He's passenger and customer.
I'll give it a go.
Yeah, oh well.
And while his arguments on the legitimacy, this is McDougall, while his arguments on the legitimacy of the Civil Aviation Act are still before the courts, amazingly, he has been granted bail. Well done, everyone in the court system. We'll just take a moment to thank everybody in the criminal justice system throughout Australia for just granting fuck-knuckles bail whenever.
Just amazing. Anyway.
This is he was granted bail despite prosecutor Ruth Whisker telling the court Mr. McDougall was an, and I quote, unacceptable risk of not meeting bail conditions and committing further offences.
Yeah.
A good bet, I'd say.
I think Whisker's on the money.
As we have seen in other cases that involve SovCits, the DPP has fumbled the brief a bit when Ms. Whisker said Mr. McDougall did not acknowledge that Queensland legislation applied to him. She also said he doesn't accept the Queensland police service. Well, of course he's not.
Of course he doesn't. But this is the thing.
He's not going to accept the law. He's not going to accept those who enforce it.
Like we've seen this before, which has been highlighted by people who look at SovCits and, like the general pseudo-law sort of movement. You can't fucking drop the ball on a case. So Magistrate Damien Dwyer asked, quote, how do we know that? Because you've cherry-picked the bit out of the whole interview and didn't give me the whole thing. And he even went on to say, the sovereign citizen business in relation to Mr. Dougal was, quote, a load of rubbish, and he took no note of it at all. Quote, I don't accept it. It's gobbledygook, which is insane. But the issue here is that Mr. Dwyer said he was yet to receive a transcript of a police interview with Mr. McDougall. So what's happened is the cops haven't given him a transcript. Well, the DVP hasn't at least. And the judge has taken offense to that because they've taken out quotes and they've said, look what a fucking idiot this guy is. And he's like, well, I don't have the context, so I'm just going to ignore that. And that I think that's one of the reasons why these dickheads
walked. You can understand the magistrate doing that.
Well, they treated him like a fool.
But at the same time, you got to understand, and look, presumably Damien Dwyer up in Rocky would have had a little bit of experience with SovCits by now.
But clearly not
on
enough.
The basis of that reporting, yeah, I understand why he got bail.
Yeah, which is fucking annoying because like, it's one of those things where it's like the prosecutor's right. The chance of offending is huge.
Mr. Dwyer, the magistrate, said if he signs bail, if his views are that deep that he says that his bail is not a legal document in Queensland, then don't sign it.
Mm-hmm.
You can stay there for the year as far as I care, so that's what he's telling him.
Yeah.
We'll see how deep your beliefs are.
Yeah.
Did he sign, Joel?
He signed. He didn't chuck a Monica. He signed.
From the illegal state.
Yeah. See, if he was like Monica Smith, he wouldn't have signed. Or if he was like, who's the other one who didn't sign up? Teresa Van Laschat?
Yeah.
Didn't she decide not to sign the bail papers, I think?
I think there was a lot of to and fro about whether she was
I'm speculating here.
raving lunatic or not. She said no, and everyone else said yes.
I think everyone else said yes, including anyone who's interacted with her on social media ever.
Hands up those who think I'm crazy. She puts her hands down. Everyone else in the courtroom, hands go up.
Very good.
Well,
this is very
going to accept that. Anyway, Mr. McDougall signed the bail conditions of the illegal state.
Yeah.
When he was just doing a bit of travelling.
Just a bit.
10,000 metres from the ground. And closing.
Well, he'd actually get that far at this point, but other times, sure.
I got to say, he's a part-time SovCit, Mr. McDougall.
Yeah, no, he's clearly not filling the brief, and if he really, stuck to his beliefs, he'd be still in the clink right now. But he's not. He signed his straw man. He called it a day. And in a later hearing, Crown Prosecutor Dane Marley told the court that Mr. Dougal's aviation charges could be proved in his handwritten pilot's logbook, where he recorded flight routes and aircraft condition.
That'd be in outstanding condition, wouldn't it? The logbook.
Well, the issue is that unfortunately, it's also alleged that he failed to properly maintain his aircraft for nearly a decade.
Oh, Jesus Christ!
So it means, imagine the logbook: aircraft condition, not great, bit bad, concerning, probably bad. Bit experimental, might want to work on this. Probably should take it to Singapore and get the Qantas guys check over it.
Got a family of raccoons in the engine.
Yeah, well,
I
it's
call
all in the
the little
logbook.
one Bitey.
It's all in the logbook.
Now, this one is still before the courts. We'll keep you updated. But the SovCit has managed to dodge the manslaughter charge. He's done very well. Granted,
He's
bail.
done very well. Yeah.
Even if the document he signed was a legal fiction and his signature merely the scrawl of his straw man, I'd probably go. I reckon he's gone the X.
Yeah, well, he should have gone the fingerprint, but
thumbprint for sure.
No, he's gone the Vicolactus bullshit.
Yeah, as they would not accept they wouldn't accept his fingerprint at the courthouse.
No, I'm just making that up.
Okay.
Just because they do the red thumbprint thing, but they just signed Vicolactus, and it's like, but I'm like under fucking duress.
At this early stage, we don't know who the winner is. It's probably a tie between the man and this living breather, but we are yet to know the final score.
Yeah, we'll see. What a cunt that guy sounds like.
He's killed someone. You reckon he'd have a little bit of regret?
Oh,
remorse.
You can't sniff as fucking like a whiff of remorse. It's so tragic.
You can imagine what this fucking guy's like too.
Just the worst.
So fucking regional Queensland.
He spends Christmas alone, I guarantee you.
No, or he's like fucking Judge Roy Bean, and everyone's got to put up with his bullshit.
Yeah, that's
until
it.
they don't.
I'm a staunch patriot. I love our country. I love our freedoms. I love that in Australia you can be anything that you want to be. There is nothing and no one stopping you from achieving your hopes, your aspirations, and your dreams.
Listeners, Pete has not been idle.
Oh.
His Telegram posts have dried up almost entirely as the craggy-faced conspiracy theorist has moved back to his spiritual home on Twitter.
He's back.
Yeah, it's not Facebook, but it's just like Twitter's become even more fucking Telegram. I said it earlier. I say it again. He's like so much easier to search too. I actually kind of appreciate this move. It's made researching these episodes much easier. Pete's written a new book. It's a blend of his favorite things, Bitcoin and beef. And I genuinely wish I was kidding, but that's actually what's going on here. It's called The Primal Code.
Who's going to publish this?
I'm hoping that they release an audiobook because I want to rip shit on this properly, but I will rip shit on it in due course because this is embarrassing as fuck. So between Pete writing a book about how to hodl your health by embracing primal nutrition.
Hang on, Joel. Hang on. What is hodl? I thought that was just a spelling mistake, a typographical error. Hodl,
No.
HODL.
HODL is a dumbass crypto term for hold. So it's like it's like a typo, but it's hold. So you don't sell your crypto. That's the whole implication.
I really wish they hadn't asked now.
It's the fucking dumbest shit. Oh, look, to be fair, it's created a $1 trillion market, so well done them. Fucking idiots. Crypto is such a Ponzi scheme. Anyway, it's also really good for committing crimes. But Pete's got on the road to talk about this bizarre concept where he's mixing food and crypto somehow. And he did a talk recently at a Bitcoin conference called Proof of Stake, Food Systems, Diet, and Bitcoin. And the stake part is spelled STEAK. Now, I got to do two things here. A, this is fundamentally fucking stupid. But B, any crypto purist who's listening to this, or anyone who just knows about crypto, is going to know that Bitcoin is not a proof of stake protocol. It's a proof of work protocol, which is half the fucking problem. One of the reasons why it's such a nightmare for climate change and electricity usage. But the other thing is really annoying here is that proof of stake is like a funny pun. Sure, great, cool. But proof of work, there's proof of wok. You could just do that. Like, there's still a food joke in it, but you just chose not to do the right fucking protocol.
Yeah, he's not a funny guy.
He's a cunt. So, look, I just find the whole thing bizarre and pointless. But you know what? Even though that was really dumb, Ralph BABET is still by far the dumber of the two people. And
let's move on to Ralphie very, very soon. But I demand to know who is the publisher of the Primal Code. Surely it'll be self-published.
But Booktopia is carrying it, which makes me really happy. It's Ingram Spark. Oh, it is a self-publishing book company. Print and distribute. No, you're right. It is self-published.
There you go.
There you go.
I mean, seriously, what commercial print publisher is going to take that on? Anyway, that's what I wanted to know.
But Booktopia is selling it. I'm going to have to...
They quite frankly would. And they're on the verge of disappearing altogether.
Well, I believe they are, which is for the best, I guess, because...
they're trading under administration at the moment, aren't they?
Yeah, I think that's the case, yeah. The underlying thing is Bitcoin, ancestral diets, and hodling your health. That's not a sentence, Pete. It's not a thing, and you're a fucking idiot. Oh. Anyway.
Look, I honestly think they should do a scan. Whoever buys that book, you got to keep these people under state surveillance.
I tell you what, that's what's happening in the US.
Every move they make, every breath they take.
But that's good. You've been listening to WSFM. Ah, bless. So, look, we are going to zero in on Ralph BABET.
Ralphie,
really
let's get on with Ralphie. He's
a fucking idiot. He is such a moron. So, he's a fountain of content, but on his blog, Let's Talk About It, there's a post named this. You have to say it.
Australia's silent poison. I'm sorry, Zip. But poison, not noisy. Give someone poison, might hear a little drip, drip.
I knew this
not
was
fucking noisy. Not a noisy business poisoning someone. I mean, sure, when they're throes of death, might be a bit of noise from both ends. But when you're poisoning someone, it's silent anyway, man.
Ask the lady from Leon Gather.
An oxymoron. This is something you should know a lot about. I'll start again. Australia's silent poison. Why you're drinking dangerous levels of PFAS every day.
Why?
The government Yeah, why? The government knows, and the science is clear. So why are we still being silently poisoned? No, he just said poisoned this time.
Why? But why are we still being poisoned? Why?
Yeah, why are we being poisoned?
Why? Let's ask questions. I'm just talking about it.
Well,
Let's just talk, Jack. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. So in this blog post from his content team, which is just code for Ruction Fernando, he makes the alarming revelation, and this is the real scandal here. Listen to this.
Australia's legally safe limit for PFAS in drinking water is 17.5 times higher than what is allowed in the United States. Grammar. I'll move on. Let that sink in. Our government knows these chemicals are toxic, yet they continue to turn a blind eye. Oh, my God, we're mixing up the metaphors here. They're silent. They got blind eyes. Turn a blind eye, allowing industries and companies to pollute while citizens unknowingly, that's a sentence, while citizens unknowingly consume water that would be illegal in other developed nations.
All right, we're going to talk about it. Are you ready to talk about it?
Let's talk about it.
You want to talk about it? You want to talk about it? Okay, cool. So the United States has, for the first time, implemented a federal limit on PFAS in drinking water, which is usually a state's issue. This is 4 parts per trillion, and this was implemented by the Biden administration, a small detail that Zippy didn't talk about in his Let's Talk About It blog, which wasn't very long, in the bipartisan infrastructure bill, which included $9 billion in funding to address the issue of PFAS and other contaminants in drinking water. Now, another thing that the good senator chose not to talk about is that the Trump administration, which he's a big fan of,
he's a big fan,
are planning to reverse this limit and leave this back up to the states, which is nice to see the states have rights again.
Let's talk about that, Zip.
Let's talk about that. We're not going to talk about that. We're not. That's
one of the things we won't be talking about.
No. But let's not dwell on the United States, as Zippy is wont to do, of course, very much like Pete Evans. Let's look at the claim that we are chugging poison from the tap. And the government knows about it.
The government knows about it. It definitely knows about it, and they're letting you do it.
So let's look at Sydney Water. Let's take the worst reading from Blackheath, where the government is taking remedial action to implement a new treatment system due to the detected levels in the water. It is 1.3 parts per trillion.
That's less than 4, if my maths is any good.
That's less than 4. That is a third of the legal level permitted in the USA. Fucking hell. If you look further, the North Richmond treatment facility has 0.06 parts per trillion, which is
also less than 4.
It is. It's far under those limits imposed by the satanic cabal that wants you to basically piss fire retardant in the morning.
The government knows it.
Government knows it. Government knows it. So I know what you're thinking, listeners. That's Sydney, and that's not BABET's constituents.
No.
He represents a fine people of Victoria. So let's talk about it. Melbourne's water. You want to talk about it? Let's talk about it. All right.
Yeah, let's talk about it.
No PFAS.
No PFAS.
None detected.
Well, let's stop talking about it.
Let's talk because it's not going well for us, is it? The government isn't poison.
This is not really fun. His go. We'll talk about this in a minute. Keep going.
But it's just stopped being fun now, right? Like, that's the real scandal, right? Where's your forever chemicals? What's Victoria? What's Victoria done wrong? Always being left behind. Where's the industry? Even when it comes to carcinogenic Mickeys in the tap water, you can't get a fucking break down there. It's just cold and sad. There's nothing but graffiti fucking coffee.
Dan Andrews knows about it.
Oh, 100%. He knows about it. He wants to talk about it. And yes, the Australian drinking water guidelines are higher than in the US at the moment, and they are being lowered later this year because, well, Labor. But also, I mean, like, this is the thing that happens outside of Zippy Babet's, like, social media posting Canberra wank bunker. Government actually does do stuff. I mean, like, it's crazy. I know, right? But, like, government actually does do stuff. Contrary to his weird beliefs. So this fuckhead with this goddamn content creation team, which, like I say, is probably just Ruction Fernando, thought that this was something to be scared about.
Going on the grammar, it's either Zip or Ruction.
To be fair, I wouldn't be surprised with Zip himself, because I think Ruction can spell. Like, there's a part of this like grammatical nightmare.
All right, I don't want to pick on him. I remember having a pick on him when he described Jacinta Allen as Victoria's first woman premier. Which clearly is not the case, and I reminded him of that. And David Lionhelm jumped in and said, "I think you're being extremely rude to this young man." And it actually he sort of felt that Ruction was this kind of guy fresh off a boat from Sri Lanka.
Yeah.
You know,
So,
it was
mate,
wrong to pick on him when he was trying to do his best and all that stuff. I said, mate, he's a third generation Australian. and why do you think that anyone with a dusky hue is just fresh off a boat?
Yeah. Just a bit of casual racism there.
A
Never
bit
mind.
of casual racism for that genius David Lionel.
He's a fucking idiot. But he's also ancient history, which is great. Oh, what a mistake. What a mistake he was. Oh, well. So, look, you know, realistically, this is just one of those, like, you know, dumb, funny things. Like, this is the kind of, like, situation where cookers get, like, a bit idle because Albo hasn't given them anything to be really angry about. There's no Dan Andrews. There's no lockdowns. There's nothing. So they just need to get upset. They're upset about superannuation.
This is kind
millionaires'
of an environment.
superannuation.
This is what I mean. This is unusual territory for the zips that are gay.
It's
this is
just
environmental protection.
Yeah, but also
No wonder
sort of
he's
like,
all over the shop because it's just not something he's ever cared about.
No, he doesn't want to actually protect the environment. He just wants to make it look like the government's trying to make you sterile or dead. It's fucking embarrassing. The same government that's paying his wages and giving him the chairman's lounge. What a fucking joke. So, yeah, like I say, man, the right wing are basically just like, oh, what about rich people's superannuation? Because that's all they've got to be upset about at the moment. Like, it's just bizarre. Like, look, I'd love to see them.
It's been a fantastic little campaign where they just don't mention. And people have been saying, oh, it's only 80,000 Australians. It's actually going to be less.
Yeah, probably will.
It's going to be less. But they don't mention that. They don't mention the 3 million. They don't mention the 3 million balance or more. And they're just going to go, they're just going to take away the money before you've even earned it. And
yeah. And I've seen lots of
every
comment
time
sections.
when I see this stuff pop up on Telegram, I reply, buddy, you don't look like the sort of guy who's got more than 3 million in super. Shut the fuck up.
Yeah, exactly. They're like, oh, but like, what if your property it goes up in value? Is your property in a self-managed super fund? Because it shouldn't be, because you live in it.
No. And this is the other thing.
What you doing?
I had this clown saying to me, what about the farmers? Now, look, I look at some of the taxation hikes in Victoria around farming, and they are fucking crook, right? They're from a battling government that's got an enormous amount of debt. But farmers aren't putting their land in their private superannuation funds.
No.
It is not taxable.
No,
not unless
that's
they
their
sell it and
investments.
there's a capital gain.
Yeah. So fuck off, basically.
And maybe it's not even taxable because if a farm considered a family home? I don't know. Anyway.
Well, it's PPOR and then the rest of it. But
so back to us being poisoned while the government knows it.
That's it. And look, I just want to say that it is so much easier to keep an eye on BABET now that Elon removed the block function properly. I had a sock puppet. I don't even need it anymore, which is great because it's not the block is removed. You can see the posts from people who have blocked you, which is really helpful. It's really, really useful. Thank you, Elon, for permitting people to.
It was the worst thing about blocking people.
Track people.
That you couldn't see what they were up to.
Yeah, whereas now, mate,
well done, Elon. I think you're terrific, by the way.
Oh, you do it. It's a terrible move for user privacy and security. But if you're still on Twitter, you kind of get what you deserve at this point. But look, it has made it much easier for Elon to keep an eye on people that have upset him. So that's good. Zippy,
not paranoid at all,
has posted this on his little timeline.
Can you see this post? Well, that's kind of anyway. Comment. Leave an opinion or emoji in the replies.
Now, this one triggered me. This one triggered me a lot because, like, I can see this post, but I can't reply. And you know why?
I can't. He blocked me too.
You blocked me. I don't remember even why. I just, like, called you a cunt or something. But, like, for a big fella, you got some pretty thin skin. And this is coming from the same guy who wants to enshrine free speech in the Australian Constitution.
He's not quite sure how to do it.
How's that
what
going
it
to
would
work?
need. Maybe a Bill of Rights.
Yeah, I don't think he actually
might be
wants
a bit
it.
of a greenie, you know.
Imagine me being able to sue BABET for blocking me on Twitter. That'd be very funny because the First Amendment, like in the US, would enshrine my right to interact with him. The government can't censor me anyway. So I think that was started by the Supreme Court. I don't know. I'm not Chancellor Trudeau. I just thought that was great because some people do remain unblocked and they tend to follow a certain ideology, which I find very unpalatable. And they were doing excellent work in the comments. The top comment was, and this was the top comment with the most likes, Australia should ban halal food. And then The next quote, the next most liked post was, "No worries, mate. How about ... space, one for elbow with 2 spaces between each word." And this is above a picture of a map of Australia that just says, "Fuck off, we're full" written on it.
Hey.
You know what? I'm so glad we have free speech because that's what it produces. Good quality content and good banter, good chat between mates. Oh,
Give these guys 8 parts per trillion PFAS right now.
Put them on the content management team. I think they deserve a fucking job. Embarrassing.
Australia should ban halal food. Do you remember when Cadbury announced that they were halal, the chocolate was halal? I mean,
God.
It's done for so many good reasons, mostly export.
Yeah.
Our food business, we create twice the food that we actually consume ourselves.
Yeah.
So the rest of it goes overseas.
Yeah.
And most of these places, a lot of it's Southeast Asia, one of our major trading blocks there, and then the rest of it's the Middle East.
Yeah. This is when Blair Cottrell was wanking up at this stuff.
And then I remember these people getting so upset that Cadbury's block of Caramello had announced itself as halal. Hadn't changed. Nothing.
No. Just pandering to muzzies.
The process, the intricate process of preparing a block of Cadbury's Caramello. And these people were saying, I refuse to eat it. I
don't want a bar of it.
I'm not. I don't want a bar of it. Very good.
You like that? Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, very good. and it's like, it's not going to matter. Fuck one to Cadbury's whether you eat their Caramello or not.
Because there's 1,000 million Indonesians who are going to fucking do it.
It's a bit like these guys, who said, Pat Cummins is this, the king of woke in Australia, and I refuse to watch cricket until something or other happens.
Change McGee's gone. Yeah.
and you go, you love cricket, right? Yeah, I love it. So you're denying yourself the ability to watch to watch cricket either in person or on television because you think it will achieve something politically.
Yeah.
That at some point Pat Cummins going to come forward and say, "Listen, I'm really sorry, guys. I was really well out of order. Let's ban halal food."
I remember back in the day they had this issue where, you sort of spray champagne when you won, but because Uzi's Muslim, they started using non-alcoholic champagne. And people got pissed off about that. It's like, mate, are you there? And even then, why do you care whether there's alcohol in the fucking champagne or not? What the fuck are you talking about? It's tiring.
Why is it a big problem to be respectful? It's not as if everyone has to be a teetotaler. What's the big problem with just
being a decent person?
Decency.
Yeah. Anyway.
All right. You have been listening to the Conditional Release program with your host, Jack the Insider. That's me, and Joel Hill. That's him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're on Twitter, kind of. He's on @Jack the Insider. I'm on @Crunchy Mose with
DM's always open, folks.
DMs are open.
And open to abuse. Cop a bit of a shellacking every now and then. But, look, I go in there, I check it maybe daily, maybe every other day.
Maybe fortnightly. There's Nazis. Too many Nazis. But we do have a Facebook page, Conditional Release Program, shitposting group, and it's good fun. So come and say hello. And
many
lots of
cool
content, which is good. It's good fun. We also have Patreon, that's good.
We do have a patron to help keep our show sustainable. It's bloody time consuming and we still have to pay rent. Help keep the lights on. For as little as $5 a month, you'll have access to all sorts of bonus content, including a premium episode. We call it what do we call it? We call it the Black Label.
That's referring to your smut days.
That's where Joel gets his kid off.
But we were asked recently.
We wouldn't offend people.
We want to do your smut days as a special episode. We're still waiting on that.
We're going to do some true crime. I'm going to be doing some true crime. I just haven't quite sorted out my days yet with the wonderful Ray Mooney. Ray Mooney was a convicted, a convict who went to jail. I'll introduce him in greater depth later, but
yes,
he was the founder of the Pentridge Players, and he also is very, very well known amongst the criminal fraternity. He came out and has lived a very, very good life. He lectures, he's an older fellow now, lectured in creative writing and what have you, stage writing for, I think, Swinburne Tech or University.
He came good.
And he's been a wholly good person ever since. Incredibly fit bloke. Used to coach track and field athletes.
Yeah, okay.
And he's got a bit of a mystery that we want to unravel.
Yes, we do actually.
And,
yeah,
points to a bit of blue murder, Victorian style. So we're going to have a look at that.
Yeah,
and we're going to do a bit more too. So all that stuff will be available soon through and free to air, of course.
Oh yes, the usual channel.
And so we do ask if you want to weigh in to the patron, please do so for a very small contribution, and you'll make our life a bit easier.
Yeah, a bit easier. That's exactly.
And finally, all feedback, tips, and death threats should be sent to the Conditional Release program. We would love to hear from you, even if to tell us that Bobby Kennedy is bathing in Pooh Creek again.
He loves it. He doesn't believe in germs. No problem.
He loves just getting around a bit of raw sewage, doesn't he?
Fecal matter. It makes you float better.
Fecal matter. Yeah.
Fecal matter.
If you drink it, you won't need to vaccinate.
That's what he swam in, fecal matter. Anyway, thanks, guys. See you later.
Thanks, listeners. See ya.
See ya.
I don't think I ever want to talk to any of those people.
Fuck me, you guys are bastards.